The desert world was quiet under two moons. Daniel walked alone, his boots pressing into the soft dust. He had followed a strange signal for many days, a whisper of sound that no one else believed was real. The other colonists laughed at him, calling him a dreamer, but Daniel knew the signal was more than static. It carried a rhythm, a heartbeat of something alive. The ruins appeared suddenly from the shifting sands. Tall black stones stood like teeth of an ancient beast, broken and half-buried. Daniel felt a shiver as he stepped between them. The air was heavy, filled with silence that seemed to listen to him. Every step echoed, as if the ruins were awake. Then he saw her. At first, he thought it was a shadow cast by the moonlight. But when she moved, he realized it was no shadow. She was tall, towering above him, at least 8 feet. Her skin glowed faintly in silver tones, her eyes bright and unblinking. Daniel froze, his heart racing faster than the signal he had chased. The alien giant looked at him without anger, without fear. Her voice was deep yet calm, echoing like water in a cave. "You followed the call," she said. Daniel swallowed hard, nodding. "I did not believe it was real," he whispered, his voice shaking. "But I had to see where it led." She stepped closer, each movement slow and careful. The ground trembled under her weight, yet her eyes held a strange gentleness. "Many humans fear me," she said. "They call me a monster." Daniel stared at her, his breath sharp. "You don't look like a monster," he replied. "You look alone." For the first time, the giant blinked, her gaze lowering. "Yes," she said softly. "I'm the last of my kind." Her words carried sadness heavier than stone. Daniel felt it cut through him like a blade. No colony reports had ever mentioned this. They had painted her as dangerous, a threat to avoid. But what he saw now was sorrow. The signal pulsed again from the ruins. Daniel realized it was not a machine, but her heartbeat. She had been calling, waiting for someone to answer. "Why me?" he asked, voice trembling. "Why did I hear it?" "Because you listened," she said, her eyes glowing brighter. "Others closed their ears, closed their hearts. But you walked into the desert when no one else dared." Daniel tried to steady his breath. It felt strange to stand so close to her. She was powerful, yet there was a fragile edge to her presence, as if she had carried pain too long. The night wind howled through the ruins. Dust swirled around them. Daniel looked back at the horizon, where the faint lights of his colony blinked far away. He thought of safety, of rules, of warnings written in bold letters. "Do not approach the giant." Yet standing here, those warnings felt like lies. "You should not have come," she said, her tone shifting like thunder. "They will punish you for being here." Daniel's chest tightened. "Let them try," he said, surprising even himself with the firmness in his voice. "I want to know the truth, not the stories they told us." For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then, slowly, the alien giant extended her hand. Her palm was wide, strong, scarred from battles long past. Daniel hesitated, then placed his hand in hers. His hand looked small, almost childlike against her massive grip. But in that moment, fear melted, replaced by something else. "Trust. Stay," she said, her voice low, almost pleading. "There is much you must see, much you must understand." Daniel felt a weight pressing on him, the weight of a choice. Every instinct told him to run, yet his heart told him to remain. The ruins whispered, the moons glowed, and the giant's eyes burned like stars. As the night deepened, Daniel knew he had stepped into something forbidden, something dangerous, yet something greater than himself. The giant turned and walked deeper into the ruins. "Follow me," she said, her voice echoing through the stone. Daniel hesitated only a moment, then followed. His shadow stretched long behind him, swallowed by the ancient dark. And so the human who dared to listen walked into the heart of the unknown. Beside him towered the last of a dying race. And around them, the ruins pulsed with secrets older than any colony. A bond had been formed, fragile yet unbreakable. But beyond the desert, Others were watching, waiting, and Daniel's courage would soon be tested in ways he could not yet imagine. The desert winds carried the night into silence. Daniel woke inside the alien ruins, the strange silver light still glowing faintly on the walls. He had stayed, though every part of his human training had warned him not to. The alien giant sat nearby, her tall figure unmoving, her eyes closed as if in thought. Daniel wondered if she ever slept, or if she was simply listening to the world around her. Far away, in the human colony, rumors spread quickly. Men in the control tower reported Daniel's absence. They checked their scanners and saw a faint trace moving into the restricted zone. The captain frowned, shaking his head. "Another fool chasing the ghost," he said. By morning, patrol ships were already preparing to search. Inside the ruins, Daniel studied the carvings on the walls. The stone was filled with images of warriors, giants, and burning skies. "This was your people?" he asked quietly. The alien giant opened her eyes, slow and heavy. "Yes," she said, "this is the story of our fall." She rose, her shadow stretching across the wall. Her voice echoed through the ruins as she explained. "My people were betrayed, not by enemies, but by those who feared our power." Her hand touched the carvings, tracing the image of fire raining from the sky. "They destroyed us, burned our cities, left me as the last." Daniel felt a chill, the weight of her words heavy in the air. He asked her name, and she paused before answering. "I am Sarah," she said, her voice softer now. "The last flame of a world forgotten." Daniel whispered the name back to her, and it felt strange on his tongue, yet right. "Sarah," he said, and her eyes flickered like starlight. At the same time, whispers spread among the colonists. People gathered in mess halls and narrow corridors. Daniel went into the desert, they said. He went after the giant. Some were curious, others fearful. The elders warned that no man should ever cross her path. "She is a danger to all of us," they said. But still, some wondered why she remained, why she never attacked. The whispers grew, louder than the truth. Daniel sat beside Sarah as the ruins hummed with faint light. "Why call me?" he asked. "You could have stayed hidden forever." Sarah looked at him with those silver eyes. "Because survival needs more than silence," she said. "The stars are changing, the galaxy forgets us. But a child of two worlds can bring memory back." Her words struck Daniel harder than any weapon. He felt his breath falter, his thoughts scatter. A child. She had spoken of a future too heavy for him to carry. Before he could answer, a deep hum rolled across the air. Sarah's head turned sharply, her eyes narrowing. "Patrol ships," she said, her voice low. Daniel's heart raced. "They came for me," he whispered. "No," Sarah replied. "They came for us both." The night sky cracked with the red glow of engines. 3 patrol ships circled above the ruins, their searchlights stabbing the dark. Voices called through speakers, sharp and cold. "Human, you are trespassing in forbidden ground. Return at once." Daniel swallowed, sweat covering his brow. "They will kill you if they see you," he said to Sarah. "They always wanted me gone," she replied, her tone steady. "But now they will punish you too." Daniel stepped forward, shouting into the night. "I'm not trespassing. I came here on my own." The patrol ignored his words, their weapons glowing in the dark. One of them whispered into a comm channel. "He has been taken by her spell. We must extract him." But Daniel heard the lie in their tone. They did not want to save him. They wanted to silence both of them. Sarah placed her massive hand on his shoulder. "You still have a choice," she said. "Go to them, return to safety, and forget me." Her words cut deep, but her eyes told another story. Behind the strength was fear, the fear of being left alone again. Daniel shook his head, his voice firm despite the tremble in it. "I won't leave," he said. "I came here because I listened, and I will not run from what I found." The ruins shook as the patrol's engines roared above. Dust rained from the ceiling, the lights flashing against the carvings. Sarah looked down at him, her face unreadable, Then you have chosen, she whispered. Her silver eyes glowed brighter, filled with both sorrow and fire. The path ahead will not forgive weakness, Daniel. He nodded, his fists clenched. I don't care, he said. I'll face it. Above, the patrol leader gave his order. Prepare to move in, he said, his voice like steel. No mercy for the giant. Capture the human, if possible. Weapons locked. Lights descended. The ruins trembled with danger. And in that moment, Daniel knew the whispers of fear had now become real. The colony would never accept Sarah. The patrol would never show mercy. And the bond he had chosen would soon drag him into war. The night was breaking. The desert was no longer silent. The ruins shook under the roar of engines. Daniel stood close to Sarah, his chest tight with fear. Above them, the patrol ships circled, their lights cutting the dark like blades. Step away from the giant. A voice thundered from the sky. You're under colony law. Return at once. Daniel's heart pounded, the weight of choice pressing on him. Sarah looked down at him with eyes filled with both strength and sorrow. You can still walk away, she whispered, her voice low and heavy. They will take you back, punish you perhaps, but you will live. Daniel shook his head, his fists clenched. I did not come this far to run, he said. The patrol lowered closer, engines growling. Daniel could see the soldiers inside, their faces cold and stern. He knew these men. He had worked beside them. But now their eyes were hard, as if he was already an enemy. One soldier raised a weapon, light flashing red against the ruins. Target the giant, the commander ordered. Do not let her escape. Sarah stepped forward, her tall frame blocking Daniel from sight. Her voice thundered back at the patrol. Your laws mean nothing to me, she said. I have lived too long in silence, hunted like a beast. I will not bow to you. Her defiance shook the air, yet Daniel saw the fear hidden in her voice. He placed his hand against her arm. You are not alone now, he whispered. Her silver eyes softened for a moment, but the patrol did not wait. The first blast came down, striking the stone beside them. Dust filled the air. The ruins cracked under the impact. Daniel coughed, pulling Sarah into cover. This is madness, he said, his voice hoarse. They don't want peace. They want to erase you. Sarah nodded slowly, her face hardening like stone. And they will erase you too, if you stay, she said. Daniel felt the truth sting like fire. If he walked away, he might live. If he stayed, he might die. But his heart told him leaving would mean more than death. It would mean betraying the bond he had chosen. Another blast shook the ground. The patrol shouted, demanding surrender. Daniel's mind raced. He remembered his life in the colony, the endless rules, the small gray buildings, the people who never believed, who never listened. And then he looked at Sarah, standing tall, even under fire. She was a survivor of a world destroyed, a warrior carrying pain no human could understand. And still, she had trusted him, called him, chosen him. He could not walk away from that. Listen, Sarah said, pulling him deeper into the ruins. She led him to a chamber filled with light. The walls glowed with strange energy, ancient symbols burning bright. Daniel's eyes widened, his breath catching. What is this? He asked. Our temple, she said, her voice echoing with memory. The heart of my people, the last fire that remains. In the center stood a stone cradle glowing with silver light. Sarah touched it gently, her massive hands shaking. This was where our future was meant to live, she whispered. But it died with us. Daniel stepped closer, feeling the warmth of the energy against his skin. He felt it pulse like a heartbeat, steady and alive. You brought me here for this, he said quietly. Yes, Sarah replied, her eyes on him. You are the only one who listened, the only one who did not turn away. Daniel felt his throat tighten. You want me to continue it, he whispered. Sarah did not answer with words. Her gaze was enough. The silence carried more weight than 1,000 voices. Daniel realized what she meant, what she hoped. The future of her people now rested in his hands. The blast from the patrols grew louder, closer. The ruins shook, stone crumbling from the walls. Daniel turned to her, his chest burning with fear. "If I do this," he said, "there's no going back." Sarah's voice was steady as she replied, "There was never going back." Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. He thought of the colony, the safe life, the rules. Then he thought of Sarah, her loneliness, her courage, her faith in him. He opened his eyes, the decision clear. "I choose you," he said, his voice firm. Sarah's silver eyes shone bright, and for the first time, Daniel saw a spark of hope within them. Outside, the patrols prepared to storm the ruins. Their voices filled the air with threats and commands. But inside, a bond had been sealed, a human and an alien giant, united by choice, not by fear. The temple hummed louder, as if it too understood, and Daniel knew, whatever came next, he would not walk away. The ruins shook again, the soldiers closing in. Sarah's voice rose like thunder. "Then we fight together," she said. Daniel nodded, his heart steady, his choice made. The night no longer felt empty. It burned with danger, with promise, with destiny. And Daniel's life as a simple colonist was over. He had chosen a path forbidden to all others. But it was his, and he would follow it to the end. But it was his, and he would follow it to the end. The ruins trembled as heavy boots struck the ground outside. The patrol soldiers had landed, their weapons glowing in the night. Daniel stood beside Sarah, his chest tight with fear, but his eyes steady. He had made his choice, and now there was no turning back. "Come out, human," the commander's voice thundered. "You are under arrest. Step away from the giant and surrender." Daniel clenched his fists, glancing at Sarah. Her tall frame stood like a wall of stone, unbroken and unafraid. "They do not want peace," she said, her voice low and deep. "They want blood." The soldiers marched through the broken stones. Their armor clanged, their rifles raised. Daniel recognized one of them, a man he once called a friend, but now the man's eyes were cold, his face set like iron. "Daniel, don't be a fool," the soldier shouted. "They have poisoned your mind. Step away and live." Daniel's heart twisted, but he shook his head. "My mind is my own," he replied. "You are the fools for never listening." Sarah moved forward, her shadow stretching long across the stone. Her silver eyes glowed like fire as she raised her voice. "This is my land, my temple, my memory. You trespass on the bones of my people." The soldiers tightened their aim, hands steady. To them, she was not a guardian, not a survivor. She was only a threat to erase. The commander lifted his rifle. "Fire on my mark," he ordered. Daniel's breath caught, the moment slowing around him. He could feel the hum of the temple at his back. The ancient energy seemed to call to him, to stand, to fight, to protect. He shouted, his voice sharp and desperate. "No!" The soldiers hesitated, startled. Daniel stepped in front of Sarah, raising his arms. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me," he said. The commander's jaw tightened, anger flashing in his eyes. "You choose death," he spat. Daniel felt fear twist his stomach, but his voice stayed firm. "I choose the truth." The silence broke as the first shot rang out. A beam of fire crashed into the ruins, stone exploding into dust. Sarah roared, her voice shaking the air. With one massive arm, she swung a fallen pillar. The ground quaked as it struck the soldiers, scattering them. Daniel dove for cover, his ears ringing with blasts. The temple pulsed brighter, symbols glowing on the walls. Sarah's strength seemed to grow with every heartbeat. She fought like a storm, her giant frame unstoppable. But the soldiers were many, their weapons relentless. Daniel crawled across the ground, grabbing a broken shard of stone. It glowed faintly, alive with the temple's light. He did not know why, but he felt it could protect them. Sarah's voice roared above the chaos. "Daniel, the stone, use it," she cried. Daniel held it tight, feeling the energy burn through his veins. When the next blast struck him, the light from the stone flared outward. A shield of silver fire spread around him, deflecting the attack. The soldiers stumbled back in shock. He is bonded with it, one shouted. The commander's face darkened with rage. Then kill them both, he ordered. The battle turned fierce. Sarah swung with crushing power. Daniel shielded them with a glowing stone. For every soldier they pushed back, more poured in. The ruins shook under fire, the temple itself crying with light. Daniel's arms ached, his chest burned, but he refused to fall. He could hear Sarah's heavy breaths, see the wounds cutting into her skin. But still she stood, still she fought. Between blasts, Daniel shouted to her, "They will never stop. What do we do?" Sarah's eyes met his, fierce and unbroken. "Then we run. Together," she said. Her massive hand grabbed his arm, pulling him close. "We cannot fight the world, not yet. But we can escape and live and build what they fear." The soldiers regrouped, weapons aiming again. The commander's voice thundered, "Don't let them leave. Bring me their heads." Daniel tightened his grip on the glowing stone. Sarah lifted him in her arms, her muscles straining with pain. With a roar, she smashed through the walls of the ruins. Stone shattered, dust and fire filled the night sky. The desert opened before them, vast and endless under two moons. The patrol fired, chasing them with blinding beams. But Sarah's stride was long, each step shaking the ground. Daniel held the stone high, its light forming a shield around them. The blast struck but bent away, the temple's gift protecting their flight. Behind them the ruins burned, the soldiers cursed. The commander swore vengeance into the calm. "They will not escape, they will not survive," he growled. But Daniel and Sarah disappeared into the desert, shadows swallowed by starlight. That night Daniel understood the weight of his choice. He had turned against his own kind. He had chosen a path that placed him against the colony, against the world. The desert stretched endless under the pale moons. Daniel clung to Sarah's shoulder as she carried him through the night. Behind them the ruins burned, and the voices of soldiers echoed like wolves. Searchlights cut across the dunes, hunting their every step. Sarah's breath was heavy, her wounds glowing faintly with silver light. Each stride shook the sand, but she did not slow. Daniel gripped the glowing shard close to his chest. Its energy shield flared each time a blast from the patrol ships struck them. The beams bent away, but every strike drained him. His body trembled as if the stone was feeding on his strength. "They are too many," Daniel whispered, his throat dry. "They will catch us." Sarah's eyes flashed, her voice low and steady. "Not if we keep moving. Not if you trust me." Her words cut through the fear like fire. Daniel nodded weakly, his heart beating fast. The patrols spread wide, their ships lowering close to the sand. Engines roared, lights swept over the dunes. Soldiers shouted from their comms, "Do not let them disappear, surround them." But the desert was vast, a maze of shifting hills and hidden valleys. Sarah turned sharply, slipping into a canyon where shadows drowned the light. They moved through narrow stone paths. Every echo of boots above made Daniel's chest tighten. Sarah carried him deeper until the sound of engines dimmed. At last, she lowered him beside a pool of still water. Her body shuddered with pain, blood silver against her skin. Daniel's hands shook as he tried to help. "You're hurt," he whispered. She smiled faintly, though her eyes were dim. "It is nothing," she said. "But the shard takes too much from you." Daniel looked at the glowing stone. The light was weaker now, flickering like a dying flame. He felt drained, as if hours had passed, though only minutes had gone. Sarah touched his face gently, her massive hand soft despite the scars. "You are not like them," she said quietly. "You did not abandon me." Daniel swallowed hard, his voice breaking. "I couldn't, not after what I saw, not after what you showed me." Above them, the sound of ships returned. Searchlights swept across the canyon walls. Sarah's head snapped up, her eyes sharp. "They are closing in," she growled. Daniel struggled to his feet, clutching the shard. "If they catch us, they will kill you," he said. Sarah's voice was calm. almost resigned. They will kill you too. The air shook as blasts rained down. The canyon walls cracked, stones crashing around them. Sarah pulled Daniel close, her arm curling around him like a shield. "We run again," she said, her voice fierce. Daniel nodded, though his legs trembled. Together, they moved deeper into the canyon. Every step a race against fire and death. A sudden blast struck near, throwing Daniel to the ground. The shard slipped from his hand, skidding across the sand. He reached for it, but a soldier dropped from above. The man's rifle aimed straight at his chest. "Don't move," the soldier barked. Daniel froze, his breath sharp. Sarah roared, charging forward. Her hand swept the soldier aside, like a broken doll. But more soldiers fell in, their weapons blazing. Daniel crawled to the shard, gripping it tight. The light flared once more, stronger than before. A wave of silver fire swept out, throwing soldiers back into the walls. Sarah looked down at him, her eyes wide with shock. "You command it now," she whispered. Daniel shook his head, panting. "No, it commands me." The canyon shook as more blasts rained down. There was no time, no safety. Sarah lifted Daniel again, sprinting through the storm of fire. The shard's light shielded them, glowing brighter with each heartbeat. But Daniel's vision blurred, his strength slipping away. Still he held it tight because letting go meant death. At last they broke free of the canyon. The desert stretched again before them. Behind, the patrol ships circled the cliffs, voices shouting in rage. They escaped. Track them. Do not let them rest. But the desert was endless, and in its silence, Daniel and Sarah vanished into the night. They stumbled into a hidden valley, far from the burning ruins. Sarah laid Daniel down gently, her voice soft. "Rest? You need to recover." Daniel shook his head weakly. "If I sleep, I may not wake," he whispered. Sarah's eyes shone with sadness. "Then I will keep you alive," she said firmly. Her hand brushed his hair, a touch both strange and comforting. For the first time, Daniel felt the weight of what they carried. The shard, the bond, the future Sarah had spoken of. The colony would never stop hunting them. The world itself had turned against them. But in this hidden valley, with her beside him, he felt something else. Hope. As the stars wheeled above, Daniel closed his eyes, and Sarah sat in silence, watching over him. Her wounds burned, her body weak, but her spirit stood strong. She had survived alone for years. But now, for the first time, she was not alone, and in the shadows of the valley, a new chapter of their escape began. The valley lay hidden under jagged cliffs, safe from patrol lights for now. Daniel woke to the soft glow of morning, his body weak but still alive. Beside him, Sarah sat watchful, her silver eyes fixed on the horizon. The wounds on her skin glowed faintly, but she did not complain. She had carried both him and the burden of survival through the night. Daniel pushed himself up, the shard still warm in his hand. It no longer drained him like before. Instead, its light pulsed slowly, calm and steady. He looked at Sarah, her tall frame strong against the stone wall. "We cannot keep running forever," he said, his voice tired. "They will find us again." Sarah nodded slowly, her voice deep. "Yes, but here we can build, at least for a time." The valley was quiet, filled with dry trees and a stream that cut through the sand. Sarah walked to the water and touched it gently. "This place is life," she said. "Life can grow even in the shadow of war." Daniel watched her, his chest heavy with unspoken thoughts. He knew she was not speaking only of the valley, but of the future she wanted. Together they gathered stones and branches. Sarah's strength built walls high and firm. Daniel's hands shaped tools and fire from scraps of metal he carried. By nightfall, a shelter stood, small but safe. It was the first home Daniel had built that felt like it belonged to him. Not to the colony, not to the rules, but to his own choice. As the fire crackled, Sarah sat close, her silver eyes reflecting the flames. "You gave me something I never thought I would have again," she said quietly. "Hope." Daniel looked at her, his heart heavy with the weight of what that meant. I'm only one man, he whispered. But one man who listened, she replied, her voice steady. One man who stood when the world turned away. Silence stretched between them, but it was not empty. It was filled with trust, with a bond growing stronger each moment. Daniel felt his fear fade, replaced by something new. Not just survival, but purpose. He touched the shard, its light glowing softly. This power, it feels alive, he said. Sarah nodded. It is alive. It is the heart of my people. Now it is part of you. The night deepened, and stars wheeled above like a river of fire. Daniel lay back against the stone, exhaustion pulling at his eyes. Sarah sat watch, guarding him as she always had. But her hand rested on her stomach, a faint glow beneath her skin. She whispered words in a language long forgotten. Her eyes burned with both fear and wonder. For within her was more than hope. Within her was life. The next days passed in silence and work. Daniel hunted small creatures, gathered plants, learned the rhythm of the valley. Sarah built walls higher, carved traps into the cliffs to slow pursuers. Every night they returned to the fire, and every night their bond grew deeper. Daniel no longer thought of the colony as home. Home was here in the valley beside her, but peace could not last forever. One evening, as the sun bled across the desert, the sky roared with engines. Patrol ships circled the cliffs, lights stabbing down into the valley. Sarah stood tall, her face grim. They found us, she said. Daniel's chest tightened, the shard burning hot in his hand. He looked at her, his voice sharp with fear. We can't run again, not this time. Sarah nodded, her eyes fierce. Then we stand. The patrols shouted through their speakers. Daniel, surrender yourself. The giant cannot be allowed to live. Daniel stepped forward, shouting back, I will not surrender. Not to liars, not to murderers. His voice echoed through the valley, his words striking the cliffs like thunder. Sarah's hand gripped his shoulder, strong and certain. You have chosen your place, she said, and I have chosen mine. The night burned with searchlights, the air heavy with the sound of soldiers preparing. Daniel and Sarah stood side by side, a human and an alien giant. Not hiding, not running, but ready. The valley that had sheltered them now became their ground to defend. And as the shard pulsed with silver fire in Daniel's hand, he knew this battle would decide more than their lives. It would decide the future they carried. The valley burned with the glow of searchlights. Engines thundered above, shaking the cliffs with their power. Daniel stood at the center with Sarah towering beside him. The shard pulsed in his hand, alive with silver fire. The soldiers circled, voices sharp with orders. Capture the human, kill the giant, their commander shouted. Daniel's chest tightened, but he did not step back. He had run enough, he had hidden enough. Now he stood, his voice steady against the storm. You call her a monster, but she is more human than you, he shouted. She remembers, she protects, she hopes. And all you do is destroy what you fear. The soldiers raised their weapons, beams glowing like fire in the night. Sarah stepped forward, her body a wall of strength. Her wounds glowed faintly, but her spirit burned brighter than the stars. This valley is ours, she thundered. If you want him, you will face me first. The air shook with her defiance. The first blast came, but Daniel raised a shard. A shield of silver fire spread wide, deflecting the attack. The soldiers staggered back, confusion flashing in their eyes. He controls it now, one of them gasped. The commander snarled, his voice sharp. Then kill him before it grows stronger. Sarah roared, her massive fist striking the ground. Stones shattered, soldiers fell back. Daniel's arms burned as he held the shard high. Energy surged through him, each heartbeat feeding the flame. He felt fear, but he also felt something greater. Courage. The battle raged, beams of fire clashing against silver light. Sarah fought with the fury of her lost people. Daniel fought with the hope of something new. Together they pushed the patrol back step by step. The soldiers had numbers, but Daniel and Sarah had will. And what was stronger than law? The commander charged forward, rifle blazing. "You are nothing. One man cannot defy a world," he shouted. Daniel's voice cut back, clear and sharp. "One man can change everything." With a cry, he released the shard's light. Silver fire burst outward, flooding the valley. The soldiers screamed, blinded by the brilliance. Engines failed, weapons burned, and the patrol scattered into chaos. When the light faded, silence filled the valley. The soldiers fled, their voices trembling with fear. The commander stumbled, his rifle broken, his eyes wide as he looked at Daniel and Sarah standing side by side. "This isn't the end," he spat. Daniel stepped forward, his voice cold. "No, it's the beginning." The patrol ships retreated, disappearing into the night sky. For the first time, the valley was quiet again. Daniel fell to his knees, his body weak, the shard dim in his hand. Sarah bent low, lifting him gently. "You stood when no one else would," she whispered. "You carried the fire." Days turned into weeks, and the colony's patrols never returned. The valley grew strong under their hands. Water flowed, plants spread, the walls stood higher. And within Sarah, new life grew, a child of two worlds. Daniel watched her with quiet wonder. Fear still lived in his heart, but hope was greater. One evening, as the stars burned bright above, Sarah placed Daniel's hand on her stomach. Her eyes glowed with tears and light. "This is our legacy," she said softly. "The courage of one human, the strength of one giant. Together, they create a future no war can erase." Daniel held her hand, his voice steady despite the weight in it. "I thought I was only one man, lost in the desert," he said. "But I was wrong. I was chosen, not by chance, but by courage." The valley echoed with silence, but it was not empty. It was filled with promise, with the breath of a new dawn. The world outside would never understand. The colony would always fear. But here, in this hidden place, hope was alive, and the child they would bring into the stars would carry it forward. In a galaxy ruled by fear, one man's choice had changed everything. He had stood against the world, and he had not fallen. Daniel's story would not be told in books or laws, but it would live in the blood of the child, the first of a new people, born from the courage of a human and the strength of an alien giant.